What's up? It's your girl Carolyn Rodriguez, aka the Medicine Girl, out of H-Town, LA, right here in Chicago. You're rocking with Chicago Street TV.
Free Carlos Cole, don't just whisper and shout it.
Dope-ass family can't be touched. She's living game rough, you're a cutthroat. You don't really wanna fuck with us. You already know when God we trust.
What do I think of Chicago? I think Chicago is a beautiful city. The first thing I noticed about Chicago is how I feel like it's still old school, like it still retains all these old, beautiful, tall buildings. Like I was instantly nostalgic, like just started thinking about like that movie A League of Their Own and like all the gangsters and like all the stuff I ever heard about Chicago. Like it just made me very nostalgic, and I kind of like that they retain that even though it's the third largest city. So I mean, I was definitely like impressed. When did I start making music? I don't even remember, but my parents said that I used to like make up songs in Spanish because I spoke Spanish before I could speak English, and so I used to like sing in Spanish. And then when I was like 5, I sang De Colores, the song De Colores. My dad would play the guitar, so that was when I first really like performed in public. And then I've always just kind of like written poetry and made up songs, like even made up raps, which I didn't even know I was into rap until I saw like old videos of myself. So I guess since I could remember. Carolyn Rodriguez is my real name, and the reason why I use my real name is because when SPM put me on the When Devils Strike album and when Juan Gotti put me on the John Ghetto album, they used my real name as a feature. So since people already kind of knew that as my name, I just went with it. Like there was really, and I couldn't think of another name for myself. I couldn't think of some stage artist name. It was just like, fuck it, Carolyn Rodriguez, I'll just use my name. But my real name is Carolina, but long time ago, you know, people couldn't really pronounce my name right. So Carolina, Catalina. So Carolyn, we just use the American version. I think I was saying earlier that I kind of ended up at Dope House Records on accident. It wasn't like a purpose thing. I wanted a place to record, and I was on a radio station chat room, and chat rooms were really a big deal, like in the early 2000s. And I was like, I need a place to record, a studio. I had $100 in my pocket, and I wanted a few hours of studio time to record my first song with my first official beat that I had. And a guy named Rob hit me up and said, hey, I've got a studio. We'll take you. And you know, I'm seeing the last name Ortiz. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, Mexicans, cool. You know, I think this is gonna be good for me. So I ended up at Dope House Records, and I was like, oh, this is Dope House Records. You know, Jaime Payne Ortiz, the engineer, he was the one engineering the session. So when they first heard me, they were like, hey, you can sing, you know, you can sing really well, you can write, like, we'd like to use you for some of our artist projects, and if you just stick around and keep coming here and dropping some vocals for us, we'll hook you up with studio time. I was like, cool. So I was just at Dope House almost every day after school. Like I was in college at the time, and I would drive to Dope House just to try to get on the track, you know. And one day I was on the dock of the warehouse, and that's where I met SPM. And I think I was having a really bad day. My electricity got cut off, my roommates, and I was pissed off because my roommates hadn't paid their part of the bill, and that's why my electricity was cut off. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, my electricity got shut off. Like, I'm really kind of like down about it. And he was like, well, why don't you just call the electric company and like sing to him on the phone? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I mean, if you sang to me, I cut your electricity back on. That's kind of how I met him. It was just kind of funny like that. And then he heard me singing in the studio with Jaime. I was actually doing something for Baby Bash at the time. And he was the first person I ever even sang for. So he just happened to be there, and then he would just come by, and that's how I met him, just at the Dope House. And I ended up at Dope House just because of the radio station chat room, trying to find a studio. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 99% sure that the first track I made for SPM that got released would be Blazin' Janie. I think that's the one. I'm not sure, but I think that's it. As far as Dope House, the first track I released that came out on any Dope House project would definitely be Juan Gotti, a song called Crush. And I actually approached him in his Suburban one night, and I had recorded some songs, and he was like, let me hear them. And so I let him hear a couple songs that I'd done, and he was like, I want to use that song for my album. And I was like, okay. So he ended up putting like a verse on it, and they were like, but it's not your song, it's her song. He's like, I don't care. I like it. And Juan Gotti was really the first person at Dope House, artist, to really like believe in me, take me on the road, show me how to sell CDs, and told me that I was going to be doing the same thing one day. And he was right, but that's be Juan Gotti. Okay, to the people who believe in the Illuminati, or that say that he's locked up because of the Illuminati, or... I told him one time about these comments that I'd seen on YouTube about this song we did called Pyramid, and they were convinced that this had to do with the Illuminati, and he's like, I don't even know what that is. So, I just think when people don't know something, it's easy to attribute it to something like that. I mean, of course, there's things like people in power that have certain power. Of course, there's groups of people in power. But as far as the Illuminati, like being a group and causing him to be locked up, no, I don't think so. I think it has a lot to do with basically, the corruptness, the combination of the corruptness of the justice system, which is not just at all, and the fact that Texas is a Republican state. And then, of course, the person that accused him of that wanted money, didn't succeed in getting money from him. So it's like a combination of things. It's not, I don't attribute things to the Illuminati. Like I said, he's like, I don't even know what Illuminati is. Like, I've heard of it. I don't know. And we just kind of laugh about it because it's like, when people don't know something, it's so easy, it like eliminates your fear of something because you don't know, you fear the unknown. So I think just naming it Illuminati and, people throwing this up or whatever, like, and just trying to find hidden meanings in something, it makes you feel more secure about unknown reasons for things you don't know anything about. I personally just don't believe in that. He doesn't either. I don't know. I mean, I can't say that because I'm nobody. Like, it could be true, but I just feel like it's just something that people want to attribute, people that are in power that abuse it and can get basically the distribution of wealth. It's 98 and 2%. So, I mean, the 2% that hold all the power, of course, they can make decisions and make things happen. But I wouldn't call it a group of Illuminati, per se. Like, it's not the reason. It's not the reason why SPM got locked up, and he doesn't rap about it because he doesn't even believe in its existence or even know what its existence really is supposed to be. There's a good story about when he was in the county. We were just, I don't even remember what we were doing. We were on the phone, of course, like trying to work on songs, but he knew I could do accents. I think his sister Sylvia was like, hey, Carolyn, she can do all these different accents. And he was like, hey, my sister told me that you knew how to do all these different accents. He's like, hey, my homeboy, man, I want you to act like you're this black girl that braids hair, that braided my hair. And like, just trick him, just like act like this black girl that braids hair. So I got on the phone and I was like, what's up? I was like doing my whole impression, and like he's really into it, like I act like I'm trying to like really like I'm letting this dude holler at me and everything. And then like I got him all into it, told him that I braided hair in like, South Park and all this other shit. And then finally Carlos is like, hey man, I gotta tell you something about that chick you just talked to. And he was like, what? And he was like, that's really a man. And he was like, what? And like he had already like tried to holler at me and everything, and so like dude was all grossed out. And I think like by that point, like we were just like crying, laughing on the phone. Like from that point he just started having me like fuck with everybody, like just do different voices. And then that's how we kind of ended up doing like the Carolyn clowning skit. But that was pretty funny because like that's when I realized that we were both really some clowns. Who is the funniest rapper in Dope House? Damn, just telling you that story about the skit and everything. I mean, Carlos to me, like, we laugh like every day. I don't think there's unless we're like fighting or something. And I think we even laugh when we're fighting. But like we always make each other laugh, especially when I go visit. Like we're always like just acting silly, like because I'm just like a really silly person because I think life is too short to not laugh at everything. Anything will make me laugh. But Juan Gotti's pretty damn silly. We've been on the road a lot, so we have a lot of like inside jokes. So there's not a time where I'm not talking to Gotti that he's not like, ah, you know, or I'm like not cracking up. Like we're always messing with each other, like always like picking at each other. And then Low G's funny too. We're always making fun of each other, like. But that's just how it is, because I like basically hung out with Low G and Juan Gotti a lot, I guess, because like we all kind of speak Spanish and we all just kind of had the same, I don't know, we just like we're always around each other so much that I would say definitely like all three of them are super funny to me. The difference between Chicano rap from Southern California and Latin rap from Texas is basically just the environment, I think, because in California a lot of people still listen to oldies. And it's a very different culture. It's just a culture difference. Latin rap in Texas, I'm gonna say a lot of Mexicans in Texas and people that aren't Mexican, black people, white people, damn near everybody speaks Spanish. It's like a natural thing for everyone to speak Spanish. But when I went to LA, there's so many Mexicans there that don't speak Spanish. And it's not their fault. It's a generation thing. I learned that in the 80s, you know, like they were discouraging people from Mexico from teaching Spanish in the schools, from teaching their children Spanish. They were discouraging the kids from learning Spanish. And these are Chicanos. These are Mexican Americans born in America, but their parents are from Mexico. And they were discouraging it. They're like, no, you can't teach your kids Spanish. They've got to speak English. And I think that's where that gap came from. So I think that's the main difference. It's just a different environment that we grew up in. LA, you have a lot more gang issues, territorial gang issues, so of course they're going to be rapping about it. In Houston, it's more of like a culture where it's just down south. It's just like people are a little more friendly there. There's not so much of a gang issue, so we're mostly talking about cars and music because we like our music slow, you know, because the DJ screw. It's like, it's just a culture difference that makes the music different. That's all it is. I mean, I like both. I mean, I wouldn't have ended up in LA if I didn't have a lot of love for that culture. I mean, I was drawn to it instantly, just like I was drawn to Houston. The music I listen to daily, it kind of changes a little bit because of new artists that come in, but right now, I'm definitely into Kendrick Lamar. I love J. Cole because I was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He's from Fayetteville. I can relate a lot to him. He's a great storyteller. I've always loved Nas. Nas was my favorite rapper of all time. Biggie. That would be what I listen to on the daily. Would be like Kendrick, J. Cole. I really like Schoolboy Q too. I love Lupe Fiasco. I really do like a lot of Chicago rappers. I grew up on a lot of Chicago rappers, so. But that's what I'm really listening to right now, mainly, I would say. And Fabulous. I love Fabulous. He's one of my favorite rappers too. Well, it's basically the reason why you saw these people getting radio plays because they hooked up with somebody who had connections. It's all about payola and the top people who control the radio play, which would be, you know, the top groups like Universal and Warner. They pay for those songs to be played every hour, constant rotation. It's all payola. You're not supposed to be paying for radio play, but that's how it is. It's called. You know, they own that shit, basically. I mean, that's what it is. So they felt like Cap G was very marketable, and he is. I mean, he can appeal commercially to the population. He's got the hairdo, he's got the dress, the swag. Like, it's just all about that. And, you know, Carlos, SPM really didn't care about that because he just made music that he liked to do, and, you know, that's what he did. So, and I think Baby Bash, of course, he hooked up with Charles Chavez, and Charles Chavez was very powerful in the radio business with Latium Records, and he could get people airplay. That's how Paula Deanda got airplay. That's how Frankie J. That's Amanda Perez. I mean, we're talking about all the Latinos who got radio play. Charles Chavez was the one that made it happen. So he got a commercial track, and that Sugar Sugar was the hit, and that's what got it. The things that a lot of Latin rappers are talking about are not the commercial type stuff that you hear on the radio. So that's probably why. I mean, Fat Joe, he's from New York, whoever he knew to get he has some good commercial music. I don't feel like Fat Joe is really talking about the things that we hear our Latin rappers talking about. The people that you're naming are not rapping about stuff, or the stuff you're hearing on the radio isn't the stuff that we are listening to. We're not listening for that kind of content. We're not listening for a dope beat with a catchy hook. We're listening for content because we need that, because we thrive on that. You know, we need somebody to push us. We need to believe in something. There are a few artists that I haven't worked with that I want to work with. I definitely want to work with Reverie. We know each other, but we haven't done any music together yet. I want to work with her. I want to work with Fora. He's I've been watching him since he started blowing up, and his music is just definitely something that I'm attracted to, that kind of music. So I want to work with him. I want to work, of course, I definitely want to work with Nas one day. That's almost like a pipe dream, but I would definitely like to work with Nas. Any true poet in this game that really is talking about real life stories, I definitely want to work with those three. That would be my three that I haven't, that I want to. What are my upcoming projects? Well, I'm working on a new album right now, a new solo album, and I'm also working on an album through Dope World Entertainment, which is SPM's new label. And we're putting out a compilation called The Rise of Dope World, which will feature singles from each of our projects. So I'll have one coming out from that project. And so between those two things, I'm pretty busy, just kind of working on my own solo stuff, and then a project that SPM is working with me closely on. So you're going to hear more about that pretty soon. And I also work on a lot of stuff with Pocos Pero Locos with Silent Giant. So just anything that I can do, just keep putting out content is my main thing. I don't know the title of anything yet, but definitely working on. Actually, I do know the title of the project with SPM. It's called The Song Whisperer. If you want to find me on social media, you just Google Carolyn Rodriguez. Usually all my stuff pops up. Instagram, Carolyn Rodriguez. Facebook, Carolyn Rodriguez. YouTube, Carolyn Rodriguez. Twitter is a little different, Medicine Girl. But other than that, it's just Carolyn Rodriguez. Type it in. Bam! It's not Caroline. It's Carolyn with the Y-N. Just clearing that one up because a lot of people call me Caroline. No, I'm not Caroline.
Those who knew me as a child growing up, see my Benz turn around and start throwing up.